The Berlin Conference of 1884. The day Africa was divided. Imagine a vast continent, a land stretching from golden deserts to deep green forests, where empires thrived and trade routes sparkled like veins of gold. But in the winter of 1884, far from African soil, in the heart of Europe, men gathered in a grand hall to decide Africa's fate, without Africa in the room. This was the Berlin Conference, the meeting that would forever change the destiny of a continent. Where it began. The Berlin Conference began on November 15th, 1884, inside the palace of Otto von Bismarck, the powerful German chancellor who called the meeting. For nearly 4 months, European powers gathered to negotiate Africa's future, not for its people, but for its land. No African leaders were invited, not one. Around the table sat delegates from 14 European nations: Germany, Britain, France, Belgium, Portugal, Spain, Italy, the Netherlands, Austria-Hungary, Sweden, Norway, Denmark, Russia, and even the United States as an observer. They were not there to unite. They were there to divide. Why it was held? Here is a clear explanation. By the 1880s, Africa was one of the last regions not fully colonized. European empires were racing. A race historians call the Scramble for Africa. Rivalries grew dangerous. Britain and France were on the brink of war. So Bismarck stepped in not to protect Africa, but to protect Europe's peace and Europe's profits. Bismarck's goals were to draw lines across Africa, define ownership, and prevent European nations from fighting over African, the partition of Africa. Maps were unrolled across mahogany tables. Hands holding pens began to carve across Africa, through rivers, deserts, and kingdoms they'd never seen. Every line they drew split families, tribes, and nations. When the conference ended, Europe had turned an entire continent into a checkerboard of colonies. Britain took Nigeria, Egypt, Kenya, South Africa. France claimed Senegal, Mali, Chad, Ivory Coast. Germany seized Namibia, Cameroon, Tanzania. Portugal held Angola and Mozambique. And Belgium, under King Leopold II, claimed the heart of Africa, the Congo Free State. Leopold II convinced the world he was bringing civilization to Africa, but his words hid one of the darkest crimes in human history. He turned the Congo into his private property, a place he called the Congo Free State. It was anything but free. Millions were forced to gather rubber for export. Those who failed were whipped, tortured, or had their hands cut off. Villages were burned. Children were enslaved. Historians estimate that nearly 10 million Congolese died under Leopold's rule. Their suffering filled the foundations of European wealth, built on rubber, ivory, and blood. Impact on Africa. Across the continent, African civilizations that had thrived for centuries collapsed overnight. Borders drawn by Europeans split entire cultures apart. In West Africa, kingdoms like Ashanti, Mali, and Benin fell under British and French control. In East Africa, Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda were seized by Britain and Germany, while Ethiopia alone resisted. In North Africa, Egypt, Tunisia, and Algeria were swallowed by empires. And in Southern Africa, Britain and the Dutch clashed for control, leading to the brutal Boer Wars. While Portugal held on to Angola and Mozambique, Africa was no longer its own. It was divided, conquered, and claimed. How it favored the world. While Africa bled, the rest of the world prospered. Europe gained wealth, its factories fed by African gold, diamonds, and rubber. North America flourished from new global trade routes. Asia and Australia joined the growing networks of empire. Even Antarctica, uninhabited, became a stage for exploration by the same powers that carved Africa apart. The world map, every line, every continent, was redrawn by what began in Berlin. When the Berlin Conference ended on February 26, 1885, 90% of Africa had been claimed by Europe. The scars of those borders remain today, etched into the shape of modern Africa. But from the ashes of division rose the spirit of resistance, of unity, and rebirth. Africa, once the heart of the world, still beats strong today. The Berlin Conference drew lines across Africa, lines that never belonged to her people. Those borders cut through kingdoms, cultures, and families, separating brothers and sisters who shared the same sun, the same land, and the same destiny. But today, Africa is rising beyond those lines. A new generation is awakening, one that sees not tribes, colors, or borders, but the shared heartbeat of a continent destined for greatness. True unity begins when we choose understanding over suspicion, peace over pride, and collaboration over competition. Whether you speak Swahili or Yoruba, practice Islam, Christianity, or African spirituality, or come from the desert, the forest, or the coast, we are all children of the same soil. Our strength is not in our sameness, but in our diversity, our music, our traditions, our languages, and our dreams. When we celebrate those differences, they stop dividing us and start defining our greatness. Let the new map of Africa be drawn not with ink and rulers, but with love, respect, and shared purpose. Let our trade connect us, our knowledge uplift us, and our unity empower us. Because the Berlin Conference once divided us, but our courage, wisdom, and faith will rebuild us. Africa's time is not coming. It is here. One people, one voice, one Africa. Globe showing Europe Africa. If this story moved you, remember to like, share, and subscribe, because the past only lives when it's told.